Hello, Erin. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I appreciate it.
of course, love Scare Package 1 and 2. 2 is very fun. So did you guys know, like, right off the bat that you were going to do Scare Package 2, or was it something that you were kind of kicking around, or how did that come to pass?
Oh goodness, yeah, we definitely had no clue that that was going to happen. It was made as I mean, we didn't have Shutter, we didn't have anyone on board when we first made this. It was just get my friends together, throw on a bunch of blood, see if we can have some fun, and then all of a sudden people loved it and they dressed up as characters in Halloween and there's tattoos of, and I was like, oh wow, okay, so this is a thing. Like, we have to do something about this now. And but I killed all the people that I loved. Like there's so many great people in here. So, but in true, horror movie fashion, we were like, well, let's just lean into it and let's turn that into something. So, but yeah, I mean, I think it was that first week on Shutter when it aired, and Shutter was like, the numbers are amazing. This is a hit. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, then I guess we got to do something about this. And we had joked about ideas, but never thought it was possible. So we had a little challenge for ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. Like I was telling Betsy when we first came in, it was so refreshing. Like I love horror comedy and anthologies tend to be fun, but there was just something that was so unique about it, and the different stories that you guys had. It was just I was just so I couldn't stop laughing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And then knowing
Yeah.
that it was Texas, like I was like, yay,
Yeah.
for our hometown kind of thing. So actually thinking about, because you were saying that you made Scare Package and you weren't anticipating it to have the response that it did. It reminded me of a tweet that I saw you made saying that you took a chance leaving what you were doing before and coming into film. Like, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I love hearing those kinds of stories. It's definitely inspiring and really important for people to be aware of if they're on the filmmaking journey themselves.
Yeah, no, of course, of course. Like I think well, first off, it costs nothing to encourage an artist, right? And it goes such a long way. And I think that's something that people forget sometimes. And there's Kevin Smith had a speech where he talks about surround yourself with why not people. There's this person who says, I want to make movies, and you have a friend who says, why? Find the friend who says, why not? And I was watching that speech live with my friend Shane, and I was like, I got to do this, at some point. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely challenging. At first, we were just kind of making short films with our friends, and some not very good, and they got a little better as we moved along. We were trying to kind of figure out our voice. And then when it came time to really take the step and say, okay, let's turn this to a business. Let's like make this like a real thing.
Mhm.
I had a huge dilemma because I was working in tech and I had a good full-time job, but it just wasn't fulfilling. It wasn't what I truly meant, like thought that I was supposed to do. And there was an opportunity where, well, I guess they would say it was negative, but I was being let go. Like they were closing down the office, and
Yeah.
they said, look, you can either move to San Francisco, and this will be you can continue work there, or we can give you a severance. And the San Francisco opportunity was a lot of money, and it was a lot of security, but I was like, if I don't take this now, I don't know when I'm ever going to have a shot again. And because I had the time, I knew what I wanted to write, and I took that severance and we wrote Camera Obscura, and then we sold that to Universal, and my crew's been on ever since, and we just celebrated actually the 11th anniversary of Paper Street Pictures. So it's crazy to think about. We've made what 15 movies at this point,
Mhm.
and what's there. But Camera Obscura was actually not a great process, even though we got it made, and I'm very proud of a lot of aspects of the film. My version of it was never released, but it was Scare Package that was okay. Let's just make this like our way with our friends and doing exactly what I want it to be, and on the cheap, and we'll figure it out. I have no idea what's going to happen. I don't know if we're going to make our money back. I don't know what's going to happen.
Mhm.
But and I put a lot of my personal funds from that. Some of that money came from Camera Obscura, and from that severance I put actually into that. And yeah, that really kind of became the catalyst for everything. So yes, like please, if you have that itch, you need to scratch it. Otherwise, it just gets worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah, I'm in that weird transitional phase where it's like I am taking the risk of putting more investment into my freelance and my personal projects as opposed to, jumping back into doing sign work or whatever I could do full time. And it's just you're right. You know, when you are not fulfilled, it's kind of like a beating every day, you know, and it's like
Yeah.
I felt empty. So, um,
100%. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'll talk with film students sometimes and I'll say, you know, and we'll be like, I'll be like 100 people. Like, look, if you couldn't be a filmmaker, what would you do? And if someone has an answer, I'm like, you probably should go do that. But for those of you that are like, I don't know, I have to do it,
mhm.
then you're in the right place because it's going to be difficult, but there is something that's so rewarding about kind of pushing that ball up the hill, that rock up the hill yourself, you
Yeah,
know, and you get there and you're like, I made that happen, you know,
yeah.
like I can't believe. And again, I think of again our anniversary was just a couple days ago, and I'm sitting in a Mexican restaurant in Austin with two of my friends, and I'm like, guys, why don't we just make some movies? Like, I don't know what's going to happen. Let's try it. And now, you know, we've made so many films and we have these opportunities and we're doing even bigger things, you know, upcoming. And, you know, but it starts with surrounding yourself with those right people who are like, why not? You know, and then those possibilities then are endless from that point forward.
Yeah, for sure. Community is super important, and close, you know, family, as I like to call them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, so with Scare Package 2, not knowing that you guys were going to end up doing it, so how did you end up? I mean, obviously it was a response to the fans. So what was the development for Scare Package 2 like, especially by comparison to development for Scare Package 1?
Yeah, well, first, I mean, we learned a lot of lessons. Making an anthology is a lot harder than we thought it would be, because at that time we were still kind of making shorts, so we kind of knew how to individually make these pieces, but the amalgamation of all of that is quite difficult. So, you know, we streamlined the system, we had more organization, and that definitely helped. It still was really hard though. Um, but I would say the biggest thing for us was we challenged ourselves, you know, and like you said, and I take a lot of pride when people say that it surprised them, because when we first made Scare Package, I was like, I've seen, you know, I'm a huge horror fan. I've just got tattoos of it. It's just like so much of my life is the horror community. So I've seen all the anthologies. I know what's there, and I know what I would expect from a horror anthology. I was like, how can we deliver something different? And we challenged ourselves to really look for that, and that's why we made stuff about the horror tropes. We made it all horror comedy. We hadn't seen that before. You know, having a through line that was interconnected in a different way, so it wasn't just like a segment ends and then you're like, you know, nothing, just like text and then another one starts. It really felt like there were different stories that are all intertwined together. And so we took all those pieces and tried to do something. So then I was like, okay, well, how do we subvert those expectations again? So now, you know, I think a lot of folks thought that, okay, well, and the easy answer was go back to the video store and just go back to a prequel or something. And it's Rad Chad putting in videos and we could just do that forever.
Right.
And it would have been fun. I have a TV series idea that's around that. But I think but we wanted, but I was like, well, if that's the easy answer, then we can't do it. Right. So, and especially because when you talk about the horror sequel, and our whole thing's about tropes, right? So if it's about tropes, sequel tropes are another level of horror trope, right? Like anyone can be alive. The rules get thrown out the window. You know, there's such a heightened understanding. The meta becomes more meta. Like it just everything gets dialed to 11. So it was how can we, you know, navigate this in a unique way? And that was when I was really into escape rooms at the time, so I was kind of playing with those. And then I was you know, watching all of the Saw movies in preparation for Spiral, because again, being a big horror fan,
Yeah.
I'm watching all those, and and it really kind of clicked when I was like, I don't understand what's happening, and like from like Saw 4 to Saw 7, like I really don't know, I don't get it. And I like those movies, and I say that with
Yeah.
love, you know, for the genre and what everybody's doing, but I was confused. And every time they would flash back, there'd be like three people in a scene. Then the next flashback, there'd be four people in a scene. The next part, there'd be five, and there's someone else watching, and like, oh no, it was really this person. And it's like the Scooby-Doo mask coming
Yeah.
off again and again and again. And I was like, that's fun. And then I started thinking about it, and like you have H2O, you know, Halloween H2O, Michael Myers gets his head cut off, right? But then you're like, nope, it's the ambulance driver. And I'm like, okay, so we can do anything we want here. If
Yeah.
these exist in the world and this is what we're commenting on, we can do anything we want. So Saw really started to make sense, especially when I had that escape room aspect, because that's where it first started. It didn't start with Saw. It started with the escape room
Yeah.
coming off the funeral. And then I was like, well, this needs to be now a Jigsaw parody. And plus that plays a lot of that, makes a lot of sense. We were trying to really focus on 90s and 2000s horror,
Mhm.
and what was there. So it just kind of played well. And then the real kicker for me was now I get to write scare package style Saw traps to be the dumbest things imaginable. And that just was too much fun to pass up.
It was, yeah, it was the wackiness was like amplified and it was just so incredible. I was like, this is ridiculous. I love it. So what the hell's
Yeah.
happening? This is fantastic. And I
Yeah.
couldn't stop laughing. But I did love especially the huge saw twist, which I won't do spoilers, but are you going to continue in that direction and come up with three? Because I really want to see what happens now.
Oh goodness, yeah, that makes me so happy. I mean, look, if more wonderful people like yourself keep talking about it, then I definitely think there's a really great opportunity there. So it's really, will Shutter fund another one, But I will say, I definitely, and if you look at the end, there's a clear, clearly I'm opening it up to something. But yeah, I have what I call the Rad Shad trilogy that I would like to do. So
Nice.
there's definitely something there that I think would be a lot of fun if if enough folks keep talking about it. There's a real chance at that. But I know what I want to do, and I will say the same way that we are usurping those expectations of the second one. I'm trying deliberately to say, hey, it's probably going to follow in this direction. I mean, there's an actual car, and you're like, okay, we're going to follow here, and then it will not go that direction. And that's what I think is really fun. It's like, okay, now everybody thinks this is what it's going to become. Nope, let's pull the rug out from under them one more time, and it becomes this. And that's what excites me. And I think yeah, fingers crossed, because I think it'd be really, really fun to do.
I'm sure it'll happen, but I'm still gonna make it a personal manifestation. It's like I need to see this. It needs to
That'd be
happen, but
amazing.
I'm quite positive it will. So, I do have a silly like trivia type question because I was looking at all of the final girls that are in Welcome to the '90s, and I'm like, who's Jenny? It's like I'm a little. I mean, I've watched a lot, but there are some
Mhm.
like older horror films and different things that I haven't checked out. So I'm wondering if I missed something as far as which final girl Jenny was.
Jenny, so wait, we have from Friday 13th Part 2, we've got Nightmare on Elm Street, we've got Alien, and then we have Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I don't think I'm missing. I think that's the
She's got to be Friday the 13th part 2 because I have not seen that
Oh, Ginny, Ginny. Yes, yes, yes. Sorry. I thought you said Jenny, and that's why I got confused. I was like,
one. Oh, sorry.
oh. And I was like, oh no, have I just forgotten my own movie with something? So I apologize. Yes, Ginny. Ginny is the final girl from Friday the 13th Part 2, who Alex Beretta, who's the writer director of that segment, we talked about Ginny a lot because that's a really capable final girl. She's not someone who's damsel in distress, like running. She's like putting on the sweater. She's got the pitchfork. She's fighting back. She's just formidable. I think, which was something I really like. And I think, and I always encourage people to watch Friday the 13th Part 2. I think it's one of the best in the franchise. I think it's a very underrated of the Friday the 13th films, and I think it's the scariest,
Hmm.
truly, of all of them. And then also the opening of Scare Package, which is, Zoe Graham's character Jessie on the bed, is a recreation of the opening of Friday the 13th Part 2.
Nice.
So the opening of that, because that's all her on the bed having flashbacks, going like, no, no. I mean, honestly, if you watch Friday the 13th, the part that's like so ridiculous is the opening 5 minutes is just all of Friday the 13th Part 1 in like slow dissolve cuts of everything that happens in Friday for forever. It goes on so long and shows the entire first movie. And she's just on a bed just going, no, no, no. So that's what we're kind of poking fun at and what's there. But yes, Friday number 2, there's a few references scattered throughout. Yeah.
Yeah, I picked up on most of them, and then I was reading that there are a couple of other ones that were from films that I had not seen. I was like, okay, that explains it, and I figured that's who that final girl was. But I was like, every time I Google, I had a hard time finding it, and I was like, what? I want to know because I just Friday the 13th is not my favorite franchise. But I
That's
will
okay. That's okay.
So
Well, I will say, I mean, and this is relevant because we're talking about this for the release of the Blu-ray. On the Blu-ray, we have a special feature that is, it's kind of, I'm dating myself a little bit here, but there was a thing on VH1 back in the day called pop-up video.
I love
And you'd
pop-up.
watch a music video and they'd pop up.
Mhm.
So we are doing our version of pop-up video, but it's all the horror references of Scare Package.
Oh, that is so
So
fun.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. So you can pop it in, you can watch that version of the film, and as it's happening, it pops up with every reference, that's there of all the film references. And I mean, and there are a lot more than I think people realize. So if we're like, I wonder if that's referencing something, they can watch this version and it can give them some good fun information, to kind of run and see, because that's what we wanted. I want this to be one of the things we talk about all the time is gateway, not gatekeeping, right? So yes, there are these like inside jokes that uber horror nerds like myself probably get more than some others. But what I like is if it was that uber horror nerd and maybe the more casual person, they're sitting there watching Scare Package and something happens, like, wait, what are you laughing about? No, that's a reference to Hellbound and Hellraiser. And then the next thing you know, that person is now watching Hellraiser. And now it's like the video store experience has been recreated all over again. And it's me, because I clearly worked in a video store growing up, and I would just be like, oh, you should watch this, you should watch this. And I get to recommend these wonderful films, a lot of which are actually on Shudder, through our own film on Shudder, which I think is a really, really fun way to kind of come full circle.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things I found the most charming about Rad Chat is it like from the original Scare Package, is thinking about I don't know, I get excited to be able to show new to them films to my friends, especially people that are like, oh, I don't like horror. I'm like, oh, I will find some things that you will like, I promise.
Yeah.
No, there's just no way. And every time, because like there's people that it's either too scary, it's too gory, or it's just stupid, it's silly, like whatever excuse or reason they have for not liking horror, I find something and they're like, I did not know that was horror, or I didn't think that I would like that, or so that's really cool. Which video store did you work at?
Well, first off, I love that. I love everything you just said there, because yes, that is that community of this and this idea, because horror gets shunned sometimes. Like nobody talks about elevated drama or elevated comedy. They just say
Right.
elevated horror because people think that it exists in a space that needs to be elevated. And that's part of what Sam's frustration is in Scare Package 2. He's like, you called it a B movie, and all this, so he's not going to put B's inside of you. Ridiculousness. But which I wrote that completely. That's how the whole thing happened. I'm texting, we have a text chain of just like stupid Scare Package ideas. And I just wrote the line and I said, you called it a B movie. Well, now you called horror a B movie. Well, now the real horror is the 10,000 bees I just put inside you. And they were like, what does that mean? I'm like, I don't know, but that's it. We're doing it. I'm going to write around that. We'll figure it out. So like, that's how everything starts, which is these silly ideas. But as far as where I worked, so I worked at a Blockbuster for a small period of time, but my mainstay was a family video.
Oh.
And yeah, I worked at a family video, and I had my own shelf. I had a little section, and yeah, I mean, I loved it, and they wouldn't let me always push all the horror stuff. They're like, don't push all the horror as much. So, I'd come up with some other things, and I would be like, oh, well, you can watch Alien or Silence of the Lambs, but even though those are horror films, but I would find ways to sneak them in because people didn't always want to call it horror.
Yeah.
So, which is also silly because they are horror, and embrace it. But yeah, I love that. And the idea of someone coming in and they'd say, I like this kind of movie. And I was like, I'll find something for you. And then they would come back, and I'm 16 years old, and 17 years old. They're coming back and I'm showing them all this. And it was a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it.
That's awesome. Yeah, my high school, my favorite dream job in high school was I wanted to work at Hollywood Video. It never happened, but I certainly spent a lot of time there. So
yeah.
But well, I pretty much ran the course of my questions. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of other things I can ramble to you about, but I don't know if you want to head out on your day or anything like that, or if you have anything else that you want to kind of bring up or highlight. We'd definitely be happy to include that in the interview. Actually, Artifice Girl is one of Paper Street's, yes?
It is, yes. Yeah, we have...
Gonna be reviewing that one.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, that comes out April 27th. We had Sorry About the Demon that came out in January. And yeah, Artifice Girl. And then we have Trim Season that's coming soon too, which is kind of like a witchy weed horror film that I produced as well. So Yeah, fun stuff coming this year. So I just want to make sure that I'm giving proper shout out to the other directors that worked with me, right? It's just a really, really wonderful group of people. And a lot of times I end up being kind of the face of Scare Package, but we obviously produce a lot of movies. I love producing for other directors. And it's fun I kind of get the best of both worlds because I get to like write and direct this like main portion of the movie. And then I get to work with these unbelievably talented, friends of mine and see how they can attack these different tropes. And I just think, I just want to make sure I acknowledge them as well because they're just wonderful and all that. But look, thank you so much. You all have been very supportive of us over the years, and I remember it, and it means a lot. And people keep talking about it, then we can get a third Scare Package going. So
yes. All right. Well, I appreciate you, Aaron, and it was great chatting with you. And looking forward to many things.